That's all right. Fortunately, like people don't necessarily come in right away, so we got like good 5-10 minutes. Like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm supposed to be watching this thing.
Oh yeah.
Whatever it is, I'm not gonna trap you. Don't worry. I am gonna temporarily. Oh, look at my bum.
Oh man, you got that on recording and everything.
Oh yeah.
And you got the manvssynth. Nice.
Yeah.
The logo. That's cool. Oh, look at your big toes.
Yeah, he's got
big toe beans.
Toe beans, yeah. Toe bean game. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, my cats are pink. She got pink.
Oh, that is very cute.
Pink beans.
So, yeah.
Man, I'm gonna steal this guy, I think.
Yeah, he's actually
the
precious. He's precious.
So precious.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Did I move something? I think I did kind of move something.
This is so cute.
Is that all right? I think it looks fine. Okay, so now we're on to manvssynth podcast 5.
Awesome.
With Sam Boss. Would you like me to just say with @Sam Boss, or do you want your full name, or?
You can do @Sam Boss. That's fine. Yeah.
It won't tag you actually unless you have a.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah,
Sam
we can just put Sam Boss. I don't care either way.
Cool.
Yeah, no worries. I think
Cool,
that captures the name.
There.
Hello.
Stream info updated. Okay. If I talk into this, that seems kind of loud.
Yeah, and me, am I
Yours is a bit
sounding
quieter.
Okay, am I?
Bring it in. And you can face me. That's fine. Don't worry too much about the camera because this is not obviously not exclusively an audio experience, but
right.
It's not overly. People are like listening in the background, or if it's on a podcast, they're not necessarily looking at us. So we'll be comfortable.
Yep.
This is gonna go here only because.
Right. Oh my goodness, what a sweetie.
Yeah. As long as he decides to stay there, we should be fine.
Yeah, if he gets up and knocks over the pot and the
pots and
and the cup and.
All right, so let's get comfy, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so bring this sucker right up to your face.
All right,
and,
yeah.
We're good to go, I think.
Cool.
All right, so apart from the 15 minutes that Zane graced us with his presence, with the manvssynth boys, we did like a little podcast after our comeback gig.
Mm-hmm.
The week after, we just hung out in here and did some really silly shit. And then Zane joined us for a little bit of that, which was kind of cool. So apart from that, it's kind of like Zane's like proper cameo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is his first time.
He's the star for sure.
I kind of want him to be more involved with the potty. So this is nice.
I would click if Zane were.
I should have done a little thing being like, hey, Zane's with us today. So come hang.
That'll bring
You
him
asked
in.
me if I've done live streaming. I haven't done much. I would like to do more. Like obviously this sort of stuff I want to do more of, but also, sorry, I didn't remember to talk into this. But also, I was thinking like if I did my own music production stuff or potentially gaming content, that if Zane was here, I'd have a camera dedicated to him. Like if there's a camera on me when I'm sitting at the station,
Yes.
and then there's just like Zane cam.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good move.
Yeah,
he deserves it. The spotlight.
Exactly. And like it could be like, donate to give him a treat.
Oh, I love that. One like equals one treat.
Yeah.
He said what?
About you. We're talking about you, bud. That's right.
Does he get triggered by the word treat?
Nah,
Okay,
I don't think so. No. He's more like triggered if you like open like a plastic wrapper and he knows that wrapper is associated with treats.
Okay, yeah.
So you were telling me about your tattoo.
Oh yeah.
It's stunning.
Thank you.
So that's your little memory of Melbourne.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I just figured I don't have any room in my suitcase left, so this is the perfect souvenir.
Yeah.
I also got the tiger done. Yeah. Figured Melbourne's the right place to get a tattoo because I've never seen such a dense population of tattooed people.
Yeah, there's lots of people. Yeah, maybe the only place I've seen with more tats is like Tasmania.
In Tasmania?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it down there.
I'll have to go get a tattoo there too.
As well, yeah. For
yeah.
sure. There's some really talented tattoo artists here.
Yeah.
We're kind of lucky. I'm not tatted, but if I were to get tatted, it would definitely be somewhere here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Tattoos are pretty big in Atlanta, but I think they're like, these two tattoos would have been twice the cost in Atlanta.
There you
So,
go.
and you have to tip.
Yeah, well, tipping.
That's an extra like $200
Yeah. Whoa.
American dollars.
Extra 200.
Yeah, because you pay 20% for a tip.
That's
yeah,
a lot.
and that's expected.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's like
Maybe I
I
should be a
I
tattoo
already
artist.
paid you, man.
That's like, I mean, $200 American in Australian would get you an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours with a
Right.
alone would get you 2 hours with a. I mean, how
Right.
long do those take you?
Combined 7 hours.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's quite painful.
We got to be on top of this guy. If he decides to jet, that tea is going everywhere.
Yeah,
Oh, look at him. He looks so handsome on the camera, though.
just so handsome.
Look at you.
He's a star.
He is a star. All right. So, Sam, I've been very fortunate to meet you in this last like week
So
and
kind.
a bit. We were introduced by a mutual friend, let's say, or a mutual acquaintance on your behalf and a friend of mine.
Yeah, someone I met for like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
but
And,
made an impression.
This is back in Nashville. You're not from Nashville, you're from Atlanta.
Yep.
But you were having a jam session out that way and then noticed a guy with an Australian accent.
Yes. He came up to me after the jam session and asked me about my bass because I play a fretless bass.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't see very many of those out in the wild. But he came up to me and he's just super friendly. So yeah, I was like, oh, you sound maybe Australian. I'm about to go there. Any recommendations or anything? And he made me this whole group chat of people. So he really set me up.
It really, was trying to take care of you.
Yeah.
So that's Danny. Danny's a legend. Danny's kicking goals in Nashville in their like recording scene. I think he's joined a band over there as well.
Yes.
So he's kind of like living the dream, I think.
Yeah.
Which is
sure.
exciting.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited for him. I'm trying to lure him down to Atlanta to play a bit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Yeah. No.
Big music scene in Atlanta.
Yes.
Which kind of makes me sort of say, based now that you're sort of at the tail end of your trip down here in Melbourne, what did you like? What was the like music scene here? What were you expecting? What did you get? How does it compare to back home?
Yeah, big questions. Well, I've always been a fan of the Australian music scene. I don't know if that's a surprise to anyone, but in Atlanta, at least, Melbourne musicians are kind of popping off. They're doing pretty well. So I would say Melbourne's like pretty well known as a music hub in Atlanta. And I'm a big Hiatus Coyote fan. I got a Hiatus Coyote tattoo. Big fan. I've seen them like 4 times in America. And so I always just wanted to check out the music scene over here. I've been wanting to for like several years. I've been planning to do it, and it's kind of a big commitment. So, but I finally made it happen. And it's not disappointed. I really came and just wanted to see what jams I could get into, what live music I could see, who I could meet. Just kind of check it out. Anywhere I travel, I like to check out the music scene. But here in particular, I've been wanting to.
That was like the goal.
Yeah, that was the goal, was just see what jams I can get into, connect with as many musicians as possible, and dogs.
And dogs.
Yes.
How many other dogs have you connected with?
None as much as Zane, but oh, actually, there was one of my Airbnbs. The host had a dog.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And he was a chiller?
George Michael. He was a sweetie pie. Yeah. I know. A sweet angel.
Which makes me think, obviously, of like the artist, but also Arrested Development.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is so funny.
Yeah. It's a great name for a dog. I love a silly dog name.
What was the dog name? Oh, at Nico's, when we went to the shop, there was a dog named called Sweet Joe.
Sweet Joe.
Yeah.
That's so cute. It sounds like a sandwich.
Yeah, it does sound like, I'm having a Sweet Joe. Yeah. It's like jam and peanut butter and maybe like sultanas or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, raisins.
I guess I was kind of thinking of like a sloppy Joe. Maybe with like sweet barbecue.
How would we? Yeah.
Sweet Joe.
With like a hickory barbecue sauce.
Ooh, yeah.
Have you had Sweet Baby Ray's?
Yes, I have.
That's made its way down here.
Oh, has it?
It's
has it?
So good.
Yeah. Hey, we'll claim it.
Yeah,
in America.
Definitely. Take what you can get.
We'll take our wins where we can find them. Yeah.
Okay, so Melbourne's music scene didn't disappoint.
Yeah. So
what about Melbourne music scene or Melbourne musicians, you said they're popping off in Atlanta. What had you heard? What are people saying? Like, it's hard.
Right.
It's not hard to hear. I'd love to hear. That's great, but it's hard for me to. It's like if you're a fish and you're drinking water all the time. Like if I'm here, I'm like,
That's a
this is
good
what I expect it to
analogy.
be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just well, for one, Australia has such a range of people from all over the world. And
Mhm.
I think that naturally is going to create more diverse music.
Definitely.
And I think the combination of elements in the music that comes out of this city is just really unique. And I think it's kind of like, I don't know, pushing the boundaries of like what people knew as neo soul,
Mhm.
and I think it's like defined new kinds of music that have never been heard before by
Mhm.
Americans, at least.
Mhm.
Maybe it's normal around here, but like Hiatus Coyote, for example, I mean, they probably like put me on to the scene in
Yeah,
general.
for sure. I mean, they popped off worldwide.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And then just by finding them, I mean, that opened a lot of doors to other
Artists similar.
musicians, other similar types of music like 3070, Alicia Joy, Lanius, and then even like some kind of unrelated but equally good and quirky musicians like Psychedelic Porn Crumpets,
So
ooh,
good.
King
Are you
Giz.
done, bud?
Oh,
He's
bye.
done. All right, one sec. Keep talking. I'm gonna let him
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that the combination. I mean, America has a lot of like R&B, jazz, funk, soul, like on their own. But I think the combinations of music with like also African, Middle Eastern, Asian, indigenous like styles of music is kind of a newer. I don't want to say trend, but it's a newer feature of like the neo soul scene.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And I think it's kind of like saying it's not like there's something in the water so much as like what we're mixing into the water and then it's part of what's happening.
Literally, yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
exactly,
It's like
exactly.
the cocktail that we're making.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so other artists obviously came to mind, the ones that
Mm-hmm.
I shared with you immediately were like Mild Life and
Yes,
Glass
yes,
Beams. We're
yes,
about to do a national tour, which is exciting.
yes. I've been listening to them.
This
So killer.
It's so good.
Love the mix of sounds and influences that come through.
Well, talk about like Middle
Yeah,
Eastern and African,
exactly.
like that's coming
Exactly.
through for sure.
It comes through, yeah, in such a unique way. Yeah, it's
And I
really
think
cool.
the other thing, sort of a testament to what you've sort of seen with this music scene here, is that it's kind of like this interesting dichotomy where there is people from all over the world that are coming here. A lot of them are refugees, a lot of them are immigrants, a lot of them are like economic migrants, or they may just like
Right.
they might have visited. Some people have just visited and they love what's going on here, so they want to stay.
Right,
Right.
right.
So there's a range of all those different experiences. Firstly, so on one hand we have that, and on the other hand, we're so far away from everyone that once you're
Right.
here, you're here.
Right,
Do you know what I
right.
mean? Whereas if you're in
Exactly.
France, there could just be people transiting through France. Like, I'm from
Right.
Spain, I'm
People
on my way
just
to
passing
Germany, you know,
through.
or going to Poland, and it's like, oh, cool, we're just hanging out in Paris for a few days, whatever. Or I might spend a weekend in Berlin, or might spend a weekend in London. That's no dramas.
Right.
Likewise with the States, it's like, oh yeah, I'm on my way to Nashville, so I'm hitting up Atlanta on the way.
Right, right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And they feel like different countries,
They
honestly.
are, they really do.
Yeah.
That's
Different-
really important context.
Yeah.
But so once you get those people that have decided to move here,
Uh-huh.
it's like, especially if it's come at a great cost to you, you are staying here.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I think the important part of that, let's say, dichotomy is that then you get branches on the tree that are different than what the tree was
Right.
originally doing.
Right,
Do you know what I mean?
right.
Like if I were to use a
exactly.
different example, like for example, the Lebanese language that my parents speak and the Lebanese music that they listen to is not the same as the language and music that's being spoken in Lebanon now,
Right,
because they
right.
left in the 80s
Yeah,
and
right,
they've
right.
moved on.
Yeah.
You
yep,
know?
yep.
And I'm not saying that they're necessarily holding on to the past. I mean, in a sense they are. It's more that Lebanese as a dialect has then shifted slightly,
Right.
like Australian Lebanese.
So this is kind of like, I don't know, the definition of fusion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like in language or music or
Mhm.
art or anything. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of important context as well, because all these people are mixing here,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and then that's creating new life and new art, and then
Right.
that's becoming its own thing.
Right, right. No, exactly, exactly. And like, I mean, of course, like gospel and jazz and whatnot were from the States, and then maybe now they're being combined with like there's a lot of Asian influence here,
Hmm.
African, whatnot. And so it's just such unique music and like not only tonally, like of course Middle
Hmm.
Eastern has like very specific tonality that they
Hmm.
use, but also rhythmically.
Definitely.
I mean, obviously like African Latin rhythms are so unique.
And broad, even within
And
themselves.
broad
You
and
know.
broad and so different than maybe the feel of R&B and soul, but then you fuse them together and it just creates something that I don't know, to me is really interesting and intriguing and like makes me want to be a part of it.
So this, you just said something, and I should have told you this at the start of the trip. I'm so sorry. I hope someone else said it, but you should have gone to Bar Russo. Did you? Does anyone tell you
Baruso.
about Bar Russo?
No.
All right. Next trip. Next trip.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
Okay. So Bar Russo
Yeah.
is basically two doors down from A1 Bakery,
Oh, okay.
and it's just a great bar. They do good drinks. That's no dramas. But they have this minuscule stage at the front of the bar,
Uh-huh.
and they basically only do, I don't want to say world music, but they only do music that's like, I guess, not mainstream. They will have like Western music as well, but it's more like it fits a certain vibe, a certain aesthetic, a certain like, yeah, it's kind of like there's a very famous bar in Melbourne called Cherry Bar.
Okay. It sounds familiar. I haven't been though.
Massive acts have performed, like AC/DC perform there, right?
Okay. I heard they're called Akadaka.
We also call them Akadaka,
I love
exactly,
that.
which is so good.
Phenomenal.
Just like rolls off the tongue.
It
Akadaka.
does. It does.
And so obviously the AC/DC are massive, and then when where Cherry Bar was originally, they called that AC/DC lane. They named the lane after
Oh.
them.
Oh,
So
okay.
you would have walked down there.
I think I've walked
Yeah.
down there.
There's
Yeah.
lots of great graffiti and
Yeah,
stuff there, especially with
yeah.
musicians.
They've got like a it's like a stone like carving of the lead singer.
Yep.
So I think I've been there. I haven't been in the bar.
No, so it's not there anymore.
Oh,
Now
is
it's
it not?
something else.
Okay.
They've moved. But the
Oh,
reason why I
okay.
bring it up is because they had like a no suits allowed.
Oh, I love
vibe.
that. I love that. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, there you go. So it's
great
kind
concept.
of, I'm not going to say it's the same thing at Bar Russo. It's like if you're wearing a suit, that's no drama. It's just no one would happen to be because it's in Brunswick rather than CBD.
Right,
But
right.
it's kind of, it's less that we're only doing like world music or whatever, and more like we're just doing less of straight down the line pop and rock.
Right,
that make
right.
sense?
Yeah, yeah. Makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
And I think you would have loved to go there because they do a bunch of neo soul. They do a bunch of like really fun, funky music. And I've seen some really strange, brilliant music. I've seen some really great African inspired jazz
Oh,
there.
amazing.
There's a guy in Melbourne who plays, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what it's called. It's like a guitar, like a stringed instrument, but he sort of attaches around the waist, and like the body of it is here, and then it comes out, and he's playing it like this,
Whoa. That's cool.
and they're playing that with like drums and keys and bass and stuff
so
like that.
cool.
And it's literally exactly what you're saying. It's just the fusion of
Yeah.
different
yeah.
elements. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I'll have to come back.
Oh, I think you really
Just for
do.
that.
Yeah.
Well, I already plan on coming back.
There you
but,
go. Is there a
yeah.
date in place?
I don't know. I gotta stick
See
with
you
my
this time
day
next year?
job another year at least, but then I don't know.
Then maybe
Yeah, maybe hop over here for a couple years.
that would be fun.
If I can
I think
make it
you
work.
just have a blast.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally only been in Melbourne specifically for 2 weeks, and I've played at a bunch of jam sessions and like seen some incredible music. Like I'm so sold on living
I'm
here.
sold.
I've only been here 2 weeks, and it's been so cool.
I think that's a somewhat common experience, especially if
Yeah.
you're a musician. You come here and you're kind of like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Like I've just kind of stumbled into the coolest music I've done all year,
Yeah,
and
it's really cool.
in 2 weeks, just as a foreigner, met some people who I think I'll be in touch with for hopefully a long time.
Yeah,
so
hopefully, for sure.
like
It'd be great to see Solar. So your band is called Solar Plexus Super Punch,
yes,
and
yes, you
it would
nailed
be,
it.
I think they would do really well down here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I know they would love to play here. Yeah, if I could convince them all to hop on a plane, I would We would love to play here.
I think that'd
Yeah.
be sick. I think
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
really. I think it can be sometimes difficult for bands not in Melbourne to necessarily, unless there's like clout or like a lot of followers. You know what I mean? Like if you're
Right.
big enough to
Right.
come here, that's one thing. But if you're sort
Right.
of
Right.
more starting off, I think the best way to do it would be like, hey, we're going to come down to Melbourne for this week or these 2 weeks or whatever, and we would love to support as many bands as possible. That's
Right.
the
Right.
vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a good plan. Yeah. I'll have to convince them all. Yeah.
Might be
Yeah.
tough, but you've always got my instruments, and
Yeah.
now more musos that would let you sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, that would help a lot. Yeah, but getting the equipment over here might be a
That's-
tough part, but it'd probably be more worth it to just rent things out here
Yeah,
and
yeah.
borrow
Just borrow
things.
Just
Yeah.
borrow whatever I got.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's totally fine.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'd love to see you come down. That's the thing. Like you specifically, but your band, I want to see them. And obviously, it's
Yes.
definitely inspired me to want to go back and see
Yes.
what the scene's like in Atlanta. So I
Yeah.
guess the main thing I'm getting from you, like if we were to sort of sum up in one word or sort of a few words, it would be Melbourne's music scene is like diverse and unique.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's like pretty free from labels, which I really like. Like it's not like confined to a single type of music. Like I've seen a lot of different kinds of music. I mean, ranging from country to like fusion jazz, and everything in between. Which I love about it. Yeah.
How's your coffee going? Do you want some tea?
Oh, it's great. Still working on the coffee. I'll let you know though. Thanks.
No dramas. That's good to hear. Sorry, I might be a bit too quiet. That's good to hear. We sort of talked about it briefly with the whole Triple J thing, that they're kind of pushing their one sound. I'm not going to come across as too critical, but this is not an opinion piece. I think it's basically well understood at this point that there's like a Triple J sound,
Okay.
which is a
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
gatekeeping.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, like, you can still be a successful muso and you can still do all the stuff that you want to do,
Right.
regardless of them.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
It seems like people still have their own projects going on,
Yeah, absolutely.
despite what is expected, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I really like. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other tough things about being a musician in Australia in general, not necessarily in Melbourne, is have we talked about tall poppy syndrome?
Oh, I think you might have mentioned it.
Yeah, tall poppy syndrome is like you cut down the poppies that grow too much taller than the rest of the field.
Oh, right.
you know?
Exactly.
And
Yep.
so there is this little bit of a sense of not like who are you, because I think it's more of this thing that we think it used to be much more rooted in Australian culture from what I understand, and more recently it's like we think that people are going to be like that.
hmm
But when I tell my friends like, hey, these are the dreams that I have, so many
Mhm.
people are so supportive.
Right.
But my perception is like I can't be great, or I can't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I think that's just the life of a musician, though.
I
To
think
be
so too.
honest,
I think so too.
it's just a vulnerable place to be.
And
Yeah.
also just like the rates of success, regardless of whether you're in the States or Australia or
Absolutely, yeah.
wherever it is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
low. And
Yeah.
it's weird
yeah.
because I think there is this sense of competition between musicians. I don't know if it's the same in Atlanta.
Oh, absolutely is.
but
Yeah.
I really resent that
Yeah.
idea.
Exactly.
Not because I think competition could be really healthy in a lot of different ways. It's more just that like competition exists for like festival slots, right? Because they can
Right.
only have 30 artists or whatever. So you're going to
Right.
be one of 30 and they
Right.
can't have 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
But outside of that sort of circumstance, it's actually so much more cooperative. I feel like
Yeah.
music should be more cooperative in the sense of like,
Exactly.
let's build a community. Like there's artists that I'm playing with now who I've met 5 years ago when I was starting out gigging manvssynth more 5 years ago, a few years ago, gigging manvssynth more seriously.
Right.
And these are people that have become part of the network of people that I know. It's like, okay, I'm going to contact these people. they're going to pass my name on to other people, and together we build each
Exactly,
other
yeah.
up. Like the idea of a rising tide raises all ships.
Yep.
So, but still there is this sense of like competition, and it's
Right.
not it's not pleasant, I don't think.
No, I completely agree. It's not helpful to anyone. I don't know. I mean, the whole comparison act is just not helpful to anyone. And I don't know, if you want to sound like someone else and you're like jealous of their sound, I don't think that's really the right approach, like that's not going to make your music better.
No.
And if you're trying to sound like someone else, well, no one's going to be very
What are you
interested.
doing?
They
Yeah.
already exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you should, I don't know. I think you should try and sound like yourself, and people who resonate with that will,
So here in Oz, Tame Impala took kind of the music industry by storm in a little bit of a way.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I think it done also somewhat in the States as well.
for sure.
And
yeah.
so at that time, I remember I was doing a lot of freelance engineering. And so, I mean, every band in like 2014 and 2015 and 2016 was like trying to sound like Tame Impala.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
fine.
Right.
But we already had like for me, it's, I don't know, who am I to judge? For me, it's fine if you hear that and you're inspired and you're like, oh, I'm going to riff off of that.
Right,
But if
right.
you're just
Exactly.
like, how do I most sound like Tame Impala? It's like, really?
Yeah.
And I think the North American like equivalent would be like Mac DeMarco.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's a good example.
And Mac
yeah.
DeMarco, I mean, brilliant. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But again, everyone was like, oh, now I want to sound like Mac DeMarco. He's like, okay, well, he's
Right,
doing it.
right. Exactly. And I feel like Frank Ocean maybe as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely
There's
tons.
a million, yeah.
There's tons.
Depends on the
And
genre, but
it's
yeah.
just like what makes them
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that they're doing what they want to be doing.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. I mean, yeah, the only, I don't know, only music I've ever really been drawn to is like that it was because it was unique and it seemed authentic, and like that's what makes it relatable. Like it's not relatable, I don't know, when you're
Trying
trying,
to mimic something.
yeah, trying to mimic someone else.
I think Tom York said as well with Radiohead. Are you a Radiohead fan?
Oh yeah, I am.
Okay.
Love
I'm
Tom
a
York.
massive Radiohead fan.
Yeah, you like the Smile?
The Smile?
The Smile?
Oh yeah, that's his.
His
so
new,
I haven't
new
listened to that yet.
project. Oh, I highly recommend.
I listened to a bit of Atoms for Peace, and I've listened to some of Tom York's solo stuff.
Right,
But I
right.
haven't listened
Yeah.
to The Smile yet.
Oh, I definitely recommend it. It's
Okay.
really cool.
Will do. There
Yeah.
you go. That's actually exciting because I didn't know much about that.
Yeah, they put out an album in the last couple months that
Hell
is
yeah.
really cool. It's like very Radiohead-esque because obviously
It's still-
they've got like some of the same members, but
Yep.
but it's like a new, developed, matured sound.
I'm gonna butcher the quote a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think the gist of what Tom York was kind of saying was like, if what it took to be successful in the music industry, like, how do I say this? He could only be successful in the music industry in his way.
Right, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yep.
And that's,
Yep.
I mean, I'm not successful. I'm barely in the music industry, but
get
I
that.
agree.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is not coming from a place of like
Yeah.
experience. This is
But I mean, I feel like it could come from who you like, observing who you admire.
yeah, that, and also just like, I guess the things that I understand about success in the music industry that don't appeal to me, maybe some of them is just a bit like grow the fuck up and, take the pill. Not the pill like in a bad way. I mean, like, this is your medicine. This is what you need to take. Sometimes medicine tastes like shit. Sometimes you
Right.
do need to make a ton of Instagram posts and you don't really feel like it because that's not who you
Yeah.
are. Or,
Exactly.
sometimes you need to have a persona
Exactly.
about yourself, and whatever,
Yep.
or like gas yourself up a ton. Like you need to promote yourself shitloads.
Right.
I'm just not that guy. Not in some
Completely
sort
get
of
that.
yeah. It's not in some sort of overwhelming sense of like humbleness or anything. It's just it feels so like boring and
Yeah.
actually no, it's more than boring. It feels like it's like mud, like crawling through mud.
Yeah,
It's like I don't know
I
what to say. I
know.
don't want to do it.
It's a little soul sucking.
It can be a little bit.
Feels like kind of selling out almost. Like, not to say that everyone who does that is selling out, because I completely understand why musicians do it and people want to make a living and want to promote themselves. But yeah, it feels like you're like giving into what an industry wants you to do rather than just
Success your way.
yeah, just being like wanting to have creative projects. Like, it takes away from that.
Yeah. And look, there's parts of it that I like about the non-creative stuff that I do enjoy, like, well, not enjoy, maybe that's not the right way to put it. I find it meaningful to run my band.
Right. Yep.
There's things that I need to do that aren't creative that I'm like, this is still meaningful.
Right.
Like organizing gigs. I don't really
Yeah,
enjoy organizing gigs,
Yes.
but
yes.
I find it meaningful because it's like the trajectory forward. The thing I dislike specifically about like PR and stuff like that is it feels so airheaded. Like it feels
I
so
know.
like, oh,
Yeah.
look at me. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
Yeah, and it makes it about the way that others perceive you. And I hate that because I mean, everyone probably struggles with like being perceived
Certain ways,
positively
yeah.
versus negatively, or like in a certain light that you want to be perceived. And the music doesn't have to be about that, but the PR does have to be about that, because it's literally the point is to put yourself on display for others viewing and others like support.
And not only sometimes does it feel like inauthentic to be doing that and promoting
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah.
but it's also really vulnerable.
It's very vulnerable. Exactly. Yeah. Like no hate. I mean, we hopefully will be doing more PR like
Hopefully,
moving
because that's the way to
forward,
get things
because
out there.
we
you know?
need to do that. We've
If-
been avoiding it, but
If you drop an album in the middle of a forest and no one's there to hear it,
that was great. Well said. Well
do you know what I mean? Like that's
said.
what PR is.
Exactly.
It's putting that album in front of
Exactly.
people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's just another one of those chores that kind of comes along with the creative process is you gotta package it
Chore
and
is the
send
right
it
way
out.
to put it. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's exactly the word I was looking
My
for.
pleasure.
It's almost like you've done a radio show before or a show.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
tell me a bit more. Tell me a bit about that because this is kind of more new information to me.
Yeah.
We haven't spoken that much about it.
Yeah, I don't think we have. Yeah, so I was in graduate school, and my university had a radio station, and I went through the whole training process, and I kind of was in the right place at the right time, and someone who was graduating passed down their neo soul R&B radio show to me. So
That's very fortunate. Were you already into neo soul and R&B?
yes,
Okay,
I
so
was
that's
like,
phenomenal.
yeah, hugely into neo soul and R&B. It was really great timing. I got really fortunate, lucky for that. And so she passed down her show to me, and I just took it over for a semester. So I'd have a weekly hour where I could pretty much do whatever I wanted, which was super awesome. And it was on like public radio. And so I would play my kind of strategy, and I don't know if strategy is the right word, but my approach was to play the music that I love in neo soul and kind of share it, and then talk about the artist, talk about the culture, where they're from, like the origins of the music, like different elements that I found interesting in the music. So through that, I mean, I got to display a lot of music that I already knew, and then I also like learned so much about the artists that I already listened to, and then I had to do some research so I could, have an intelligent spiel about the artist. So yeah, that was a ton of fun. Such a blast. I brought on a guest or two. I brought in the drummer of my band, and we just like chatted about our favorite Atlanta musicians and how neo soul has kind of morphed into what it is in Atlanta. We actually have talked about Melbourne multiple times on my radio show, just because it's such a
Mecca?
yeah,
Maybe?
a mecca is exactly what it is of neo soul. So Melbourne, London,
London's great.
London has an incredible neo soul scene as well. So
New York?
New York, definitely New York. LA has got a good amount of neo soul. I think Atlanta has an incredible neo soul scene. But it's more on like the jam session side. It's more like a community.
Rather than like releases and recordings.
Right, exactly. And there are a lot of people who make and release their music in Atlanta, but I think the special part of the neo soul scene there is like the jam sessions. So I would meet people at those jam sessions, and then maybe if they had projects out, I would play them on the radio station, and talk about their music and like, I don't know, whatever they told me about their background, how they got into music, what their training was like, anything I could gather on them.
That's exciting.
It was really fun.
And it sounds like just like you're like the perfect person for that kind of thing.
Thank you.
So you're not doing that anymore?
No. I finished graduate school in May, so I passed it along to the next.
Is there like a feeling within you that you kind of want to keep doing something like that, similar to sort of this sort of thing?
Honestly, yeah. I could so see myself I don't know. I've considered doing some kind of like YouTube channel where I just interview artists around Atlanta.
That would be perfect for you.
Oh, I think it would be really fun because I love chatting. I love yapping.
I think that's why we get on so well.
I think so.
Because I love yapping too.
Yes, two yappers. Yeah, love it, love it. And I love talking about music. And I definitely like go down rabbit holes of music, and I get really obsessed about things, and I want to share with people. And then instead of like having some outlet where people volunteer to be told about music, I just explain all about music. Someone I send them like 50 songs at a time, which I might have done to you.
Yeah, you did. And I loved it. Actually, the first one you sent to me, I listened to it right away because I had like 5 seconds to listen to it. I listened to it immediately. Was like, what the hell? Sent it to my friend Hamish, who's the drummer in my band, and then he was just like, "How the? How did you? What? What is this? How do you know about this? You know?
Was it The Wave by CISO Neon?
It was the Korean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was sick.
Yeah. Korea has some really, really cool music.
Yeah, big time.
Honestly, like,
Big
do you know
time.
Midair Thief?
I don't listen to my like. Sorry, I'm not like actively listening.
Right,
but the
right,
things
right.
that I've heard from there.
It's kind of like a weird space that I don't even know that much about because I've never been to Korea. I don't know a ton of people from Korea to like speak on the music scene, but I've found like the more I go down the rabbit hole, the more amazed I am. So I'm gonna keep spamming you with that, or
Please
maybe
do.
I'll actually start a channel of some kind, and then people can willingly subscribe to learn about the music I want to talk about.
I think
rather
that's the
than
kind
me
of thing
spamming.
that format would do really well on Instagram as like reels where, you know, like let's say you do a 10-minute interview or whatever, 20-minute interview, where you pull out like 1 minute. Like, you know, people like do like street interviews and
Ooh, yeah.
and like whatever. They're fine. Sometimes
Right.
they're funny, sometimes they're just like real cringe.
Right.
But what you would do, I think, is extract like that 1 minute of pure genius where someone says something, you're like, what the hell? And then cool, that's a bit. And then that's how people get into it. I kind of want to do that with this, but I don't
Yeah.
have like the editing, well, not editing chops. I think I just need to, we're talking about like being consistent with what your
Right.
workflow is.
Right.
And I
right.
find it's like, it's really easy for me to get motivated to talk to people like yourself.
Right. Right.
Because I'm excited and I like talking and I like listening.
Exactly.
Like the reason why I started doing this like the two main reasons was I want to learn more about people and their music.
Right. Right.
And I think that this would be a great way to establish a community
yes. Yes. I completely
around the
agree.
music scene here.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's honestly a little bit of a shock positively. I'm pleasantly surprised that people know about the music scene at all anywhere else.
they really do. I promise. Yeah.
That's really great to hear.
yeah.
From my perspective, again, like a fish in water, I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like, man, people need to know about what's going on in Melbourne.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So I was
yeah.
like, this is my way of contributing to that.
I think people in the know of like, especially people who play somewhere in the realm of jazz and neo soul in America,
Know about it.
almost everyone is going to know about the music scene here. I've had multiple people verbatim say like there's something in the water over there. Like you described earlier, I think you said the same thing. Genuinely, people love it. Like my hometown, Melbourne, Florida.
That one's actually pronounced Melbourne.
Yeah, Melbourne. So that's why
This is Melbourne.
if I say Melbourne instead of Melbourne, forgive me. It's my Melbourne. But yeah, no, genuinely my like small town in Florida. My whole high school group of friends are like the biggest Hiatus Coyote fans, and like
cool.
they came up and visited me in Atlanta. We all went to see Hiatus Coyote together.
sick.
Oh yeah,
So you also had a bit of a chat with, was his name Brett?
Brett Williams.
Brett
Yes. Oh.
Did you sort of pick his brain at all?
A bit, yeah.
Because now he's married an Aussie and he's living
Yes.
here. And obviously he would have intimate knowledge of both music scenes.
Yes,
Did
yes.
you get to ask him anything about that?
Yeah.
I'd be curious what he thinks.
Yeah, no, he has a very positive opinion about Australia and the music scene around here. And he was, I'm pretty sure, born and raised Pittsburgh,
Okay.
which surprisingly, I don't know if anyone even knows about Pittsburgh, but has a very cool music scene.
Cool.
And he was kind of raving about the jazz scene over there. So he was raised in that space. I want to say he maybe played in a church. don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Pretty big pipeline of especially keys players
Yes, yes. Oh
from
my gosh.
gospel.
Yeah, gospel music is a huge source of like great jazz, funk, soul musicians in America for sure.
Gospel's
Yeah.
like Latin is to like French and Spanish and like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like the parent language that if you want to do neo soul
Exactly.
and jazz and funk, like you really should know gospel.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Every form of American music, I think, has been passed down from like gospel musicians and singers.
That's really it's kind of amazing how impactful it is.
Yeah,
So
it really
my
is.
teacher, lecturer at uni, who was like one of my close teachers, let's say, a mentor for me, Ben Grayson, one of the most talented keys players I've ever met. Um, he was, he did his masters whilst he was teaching us on specifically gospel voicings of chords.
Oh,
Because
that's
they're
awesome.
so interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't have much more to say, but like just like you could write like a master
Yeah.
thesis
Yeah.
just on the voicings of chords in gospel.
Absolutely. And they're so emotional for
They,
historical
they have to
reasons.
be right.
They
Like
have to be.
it's like when you
Yeah.
think about not ancient but like medieval like church music, like Renaissance church music, and
Yeah.
you listen to it, even if you're not religious. I mean,
Yeah.
you listen
Yeah.
to it in a cathedral, and it's like the way that it works with
Absolutely.
the reverb and the specific voicings of things,
Yeah.
the big choirs and an organ, and you sort of
Yes.
overcome with the sense of how do you
Yes.
say it, reverence. When I say
Yes.
the word awe, I mean literally awe. Like it's
Yes.
awesome. It invokes
Yes.
awe in
It
you,
really
and
does.
it's like functional. Like that's the point of the
Yes.
music. In the same way
Yes.
that gospel is supposed to be
Right.
evocative.
Right, right. And I mean, it came from an era of slavery. And so, I mean, the people who were enduring that, victims of slavery, were, created this like beautiful outlet is the best to the best they could. And yeah, created this extremely emotional music. And, they still found inspiration in religion and thus was born gospel music.
Yeah,
And so it has deep rooted meaning and emotion to it. And I think that has been passed down
definitely.
through different genres,
It's
which is
very important.
very important, very interesting. And I think they get the credit for like all American music of all time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean that's like definitively American. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
like even jazz is like a baby in somewhat
yeah.
of
It
gospel,
is
and that is
absolutely.
considered the American music, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And that is totally rooted in gospel music and the church. Yeah. So church musicians have like are closer to the source of
in
that,
a lot of
like
ways. Yeah.
that inspiration and emotion that bred all these different kinds of music.
It's again, it's awesome. It
Yeah.
evokes awe
Yeah.
when you
Truly.
listen to it.
Truly, yeah. Gospel music's really cool. I'm not someone who attends a church or anything, but I will go see a gospel choir anytime, and the bands can be really awesome. And I also love that it does provide gigs for musicians, and they're normally well paid. So I love that about
That's
it.
great for sure.
I think it's a great place for musicians to learn and be paid.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be. I don't mean this in a pun way, but it can be like a baptism by fire, right? Because you have to
Right.
really know your chops,
Oh yeah.
and it's live,
You are thrown into the fire.
yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you got to kind of
Yep. Yep.
be like steel and sort of be molded and made stronger by the fire rather than
Yes.
burning up.
Yes,
So that's probably
exactly.
why they have such great chops.
Yes, yes. It's like you're forced into improvisation in what can be really complex music, and but also like it'll teach you so much foundationally about playing music and improv.
Mm.
Not that I wasn't really necessarily a church musician. I've played church gigs and definitely learned a lot from them, but yeah, you're definitely thrown into the fire. It's a great way to learn.
So that might also be like another distinction between American and Australian music cultures. Like that scene isn't really like that's not a thing. Yeah,
Right,
I don't-
right, right.
Hillsong exists. Hillsong is like maybe the closest thing we have to what you're talking about.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But they're like approaching more of like a mega church thing rather than like roots, which I think is what a lot of
Right,
a lot
right.
of gospel music is like. When I say roots, I mean like grassroots, like in every community,
Yep.
this is what happens every Sunday,
Yes.
rather than like the mega church thing, which is like kind of a much more of a performative,
Right.
like
Right.
intensely performative. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah. I see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
it's
Uh huh.
not so in the water here, so to speak.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Especially because, well, yeah. Anyway, that's a totally different conversation. But we got there because Brett was part of the church. He grew up as a church muso, potentially.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he said he played in the church, and yeah, then he was jazz trained, and he ended up moving to New York, and he played with some of the greats of American music, Stevie Wonder, Robert Glasper, Snarky Puppy.
Love Robert Glasper.
Oh, he's so amazing. Marcus Miller he toured with.
Mm-hmm.
He was like the touring pianist with Marcus Miller, which is pretty astounding. And also the fact that he's a pianist and he was the touring pianist with Stevie Wonder
That's it. Yeah.
and Robert Glasper,
Yeah.
like two of the best pianists
like,
of all time.
Like a rock example would be like Taylor Hawkins being the drummer for Foo Fighters. Like,
Yeah,
you got Dave
yeah.
Grohl in the band, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
That's
what I'm saying?
exactly
If you're
what
going to
it
be the
is.
drummer for Foo Fighters,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got to be fucking amazing. So
Yes,
this guy,
yes.
we're talking about two of the best keys players
Yes.
of all time.
Yes.
You know, maybe excluding Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea.
Exactly,
We've got Stevie Wonder. We've got
exactly.
Robert Glasper.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's plenty more. Bill Evans. Anyway, there's heaps.
Yes.
But we're talking about like pinnacle
the
players.
greats. The greats.
And he's playing piano on their live shows.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I mean there's a long list of musicians he's toured with who are that caliber. So yeah, really incredible to meet him. Also a super nice guy. Like I was just a stranger. I was talking to one of his bandmates because I was at one of his gigs, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's so cool to see Brett Williams and also like all these local Australian musicians who are just equally as insane." But yeah, Brett Williams like played with a bunch of artists I love, so his bandmate introduced me, and then Brett talked to me for like 15 minutes, and like gave me a bunch of recommendations for jam sessions and shows to go see, and yeah, I asked him about his background, and he was just talking about, yeah, jazz trained, church musician. And he had been playing huge gigs in New York, but I think over COVID, him and his wife decided to move to Australia because music wasn't really viable at that point, of course. And I think they just had a kid. I think they have a young kid, a year or two. So I think maybe this is more of the environment to raise a kid than in New York City.
Yeah, I've thought that before.
Naturally. Yep. So, yeah, it seems like he's still working on some killer projects. I believe him and his wife work on some music together. I think she's an R&B singer.
Great.
And I mean, I saw him playing with some amazing musicians. He plays regularly with the Cats and Hiatus Coyote
That's sick.
at a jam session at Shot Kickers. And then, yeah, I saw him play at Uptown Jazz. It was a jazz standards kind of gig. So he's like on all sides of the spectrum of music around here as well.
So firstly, obviously seeing someone like that, incredible.
So amazing. And it's so nice. So sweet.
Which is like that's icing on the cake, really. Don't you reckon?
Truly,
You know,
truly.
if he was an asshole, you'd be like,
Okay, I don't care anymore. That how good you are.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's also nice.
He's also so sweet. Like, he was just so hospitable to me, and he was like, "Oh, if you ever move to Australia, if you're ever around, just reach out. I'll help you out with like getting in the scene."
That's so nice.
I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. What a sweet guy. It's like, yeah, I'm always afraid to meet my heroes because sometimes
Oh,
they
you
can
never
be
know.
kind of assholes.
Of
You
course.
never know. You never know. Because,
know.
I mean, the really big musicians like that kind of have the bragging rights and they have
That's what I'm saying. Like for
yeah,
you to still be grounded, I mean, that takes a lot of work.
humility. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Self-reflection.
The reason why I say work specifically is because not only do you like kind of know that you have the bragging rights, but everyone around you is probably gassing you up too.
all the time. Yes.
You know, so
How
if
do you
you-
not have an ego? It's impressive.
Yeah, good on him.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Good on him.
So do you get the sense? So you said that the people he was playing with at that Uptown Jazz gig were equally as insane.
You know, I'm not I mean, I play jazz, but I'm not like an expert at jazz, and especially like I think it's hard to compare different instruments to one another.
course.
But I mean, they were all playing at an insanely high level.
Sure. So the reason why I ask is because I guess I'm really glad to hear that he and you and other internationals who've come here have had like a really positive experience of musicians here. I guess one of those things that I've been critical about, but just part of some of the things that happen here is that we are a bit more complacent, I think, in some ways.
Right.
But it's good to hear that, like, again, from your perspective, from his perspective, the people that you're seeing there, that they are. It could seem to me that if you played with someone like Stevie Wonder, do you
Yeah.
kind of get what I'm getting
Yes,
at?
I
Like,
know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
it's like the first
Yeah.
time you do like a really intense drug, and then you're trying chasing the dragon, and then suddenly you're in the end of the world in Melbourne playing with
Yeah.
musicians here. And I'm not trying.
Yeah.
I'm not deriding the musicians here. I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's be honest. Compared to Stevie Wonder, who like, what
Well,
the hell?
no one can compare to Stevie Wonder, but yeah, no, naturally. But I think, and I understand this, but I think that a lot of the world has this slightly skewed vision of what America is, and the music scene, because the only music that you hear out of America is probably the Stevie Wonders, the
best
best. And as in any other place in the world with those great heroes of music, there are also a ton of people who are playing at a completely different level and, just playing for fun and, never going to make it big. And you're never going to hear those people.
Yep.
So it seems like, we've got all these crazy musicians. We're also a very dense country.
Yeah, I think that's the second.
So much music going on. I don't know how it compares to Australia, but the music education is pretty big in America. So there's just naturally a lot of musicians.
There seems to be more of a general focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths.
Here?
I would say, yeah, here.
Okay, yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say. I think, fortunately, Australians culturally really love art.
Yeah.
So that
yeah.
part we're really quite.
Yes.
It's just that doesn't necessarily translate to education.
Right.
And that is also like true. Like, for example, analogy might be like language. So I think I mentioned to you, I think according to the last census, 40% of Melburnians speak a language other than English at home.
Right.
But we're also, Australia broadly is one of the worst countries for speaking languages other than English, or at least teaching languages other than English.
Right.
So all of those people speaking languages other than English at home are doing that because their parents are either migrated here or, or they're second generation and they want to keep the language alive, which is brilliant. I mean, I am one of those people. But there's very few people who are speaking, for example, like France, or Switzerland, or Germany, who are speaking second and third languages because that's what they're taught at school.
Right. Exactly.
There's none of that.
Exactly.
Or very little. Like I would hazard a guess at less than 2%.
Yeah.
So I think it's analogous to music in the sense of like there's very few people who are, well, language is an extreme example. Art is valued, music is valued, but it's not necessarily, I would say, taught to that same level that it's valued.
Right. Yeah.
And I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. That's just my experience. And I was quite fortunate because the high school that I went to kind of made an effort to value music and academically things that are valued as STEM, but outside of that, sports is really big. Just in
right. Definitely.
Massive,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so that would be the generally like the non-academic pursuit that is very heavily incentivized.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Very similar.
I think there's a huge disparity as well in America. I don't know how it is here, but in education generally, and there's a huge wealth disparity across the country, and that really is reflected in music education. I mean, wealthier schools have way more resources to fund music teachers, which are not considered an essential for education.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. So some schools, I mean, like Massachusetts, I think is probably the best education you can get in America. Florida, where I'm from, is one of the worst. Same with Georgia. Georgia's one of the worst. So there are schools that have so little funding they can't afford textbooks, and so of course they're not going to have a music program. So there is a huge disparity, and then there's also people who grow up in Boston and New York who are, bred around schools like Juilliard, Eastman, Berklee College of Music, and they're just exposed to so much that there are no barriers to entry for music because there's so much money, frankly, to support their education and whatnot. So while there is a great degree of music education, it's not everywhere. So I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. And I think any attempt to paint, I guess, both Australia and the States in one way is
Right.
not an effort in futility, but I think Australia, I wouldn't say is homogenous, but the differences between the states, I would say, exist, but they're not as intense, I think, as the differences between the states and the US.
Yeah. Like the extremes are extreme on the high end
It's
and
kind
low
of what
end,
I've
which,
been,
you've been saying.
Yeah, because I noticed that when I was there, it was so so different.
Yeah. It's like there's a high proportion of millionaires and billionaires probably compared to other places, but there's also a ridiculous homelessness crisis. It's like such a disparity. So yeah, anything I say is kind of like with the caveat that
It's your experience.
it's
in
my
Georgia,
experience. I'm
Florida.
like upper middle class white person from I don't know, stable family with resources.
Which is all of that is a blessing.
Yeah,
All of that is a
absolutely.
blessing, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I grew up in a place that, I mean, my high school had maybe 6 orchestras, something like
Wow,
that. 'Cause
that-
there were so many students.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing is talking about music education and specifically with the States, it's like it's competitive there.
Yes. Yes.
In a way that I haven't seen here.
Yes.
Like here it was just like, this is what music is, like learn the theory and
Right.
try and play in one of the bands at school or something like that.
Right.
But from what I've seen, and this could just be my experience of media there, because I didn't have any experience of it when I was there,
Right.
of music education.
Right.
Where would I have had access to that? But what I've seen in media is just like, marching bands, orchestras. And I'm talking like
Yes.
high school kids that like,
Yes.
could play well,
Yes. Yes.
accurately, maybe the best way to put it. They could play accurately.
Yes. Yes. I definitely think that impacts, I don't know, the level that, I don't know. It creates a different barrier to entry because now you've just raised the bar for I don't know, the average person, because I mean, starting in elementary school, you're competing to be in an orchestra, like which orchestra you're in. Well, there's 5 orchestras.
Yeah.
You probably got to practice a lot if you want to, like, if you're a competitive musician, you want to, and then you compete at the county level, which is like a couple cities, and then you can compete at the state level. You can compete at the national level.
Yeah.
And then within your bands, so my high school had 5 orchestras, 3 bands, 3 jazz bands, marching band, probably 3 or 4 choirs. We had a percussion ensemble. It's just
That's
like,
sick.
which I'm very
Percussion
grateful.
ensemble especially.
Yeah, that was super cool. Like you're also competing for your chair. Did you do that?
Sure.
Do you have that here?
No, well, no.
No?
It would be more of a struggle to have an orchestra in a school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's quite a privilege.
And the idea of, this is not meant to be judgmental, but the idea of competing with music is totally foreign to me.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that itself naturally lends itself to be a competitive thing.
No, not at all.
And again, that sounds judgmental. It's more, I think it's great that there's opportunities for people to play.
Yeah.
I just hope that people don't get like burnt out or maybe get the wrong idea about what music is fundamentally.
Yes, that is a great point. I completely agree because I personally burnt myself out completely because I was a very competitive oboist. I don't know if I told you that already.
You did tell me you play oboe, yeah.
Yeah, and I
It's
would.
really cool.
Oh, thank you. It's I don't normally don't lead with that because it's not quite as glamorous as bass, but yeah, that was kind of my big thing for quite some time, and it was like extremely competitive. And it's kind of the American hustle grind culture mentality now put into music, and my view of music was that you had to be the best to be worthy.
The definition of best being
like winning at all these competitions, like playing your scales flawlessly. It's
See,
so silly.
I think, well, so this is kind of what I'm getting at with regards to what, like, how could music be a competitive venture? I understand again
Yeah.
if you're competing for a festival slot or whatever it is, that makes sense that
Yeah.
there's a competition in the sense of
Yeah.
they're probably going to give it to people with more followers,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But one of the issues that I think music has in education specifically
Mm-hmm.
is that you can assess and examine how someone plays a scale
Yeah.
and whether or not maybe
Exactly.
like let's say with an oboe, whether they're producing tones in like a pure consistent
Right.
fashion,
Right.
that's totally fine. You can assess people's understanding of theory. You cannot, I think, accurately, consistently, maybe reliably is a better word, assess creativity.
I completely agree.
Like if
Yeah.
like if a 10-year-old writes a piece of music and it sounds exactly like everything else they've ever made, well, not they've ever made. That's crazy. That exists.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you just rewritten the melody from Moonlight Sonata, or so. You know, so
Right.
this is like such a crazy example in my mind.
I see what you're saying,
Like,
though.
that's not very creative.
Right. Right.
It's cool that they did that. That's great, and
Yeah.
I want to encourage them doing that because the first things that I wrote fucking sucked.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like
yeah.
anyone.
Everyone's gonna start from nothing.
It's not nothing. You can't like
Yeah.
assess that. Like, if you
Right.
gave them a score for that,
Absolutely.
that would be like demoralizing.
Yeah.
That'd be horrible.
Absolutely.
If you could give it a score.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
if someone did something that was like, you know, so creative that it sort of bordered on not being understandable, like, where does that fit on that? as
Yeah,
well? Like,
yeah.
That's not also,
It's not good or bad.
it's not good or bad. It's just like, how do you assess that? How do you tell them
Yeah.
like this is good or bad? How do you give
Yeah.
them, oh, that's 90% creative?
Right. There's no metric. There's no metric.
And that's why I think you, like, it sounds like you could speak to this really well. But to me, if someone was like, hey, like, yeah, look, your technique on guitar isn't that great. I mean, you played the chords just fine, but the technique wasn't great. And honestly, like, you know, you didn't really understand the scales that you were playing or something like that. That would be like, well, personally, I'm a bit of like, well, fuck you. I want to play my guitar how I want to play my guitar.
Right,
And I
right.
specifically decided to teach myself because I
Exactly.
didn't want other people to teach me. I was
Exactly.
learning piano before that.
Yeah.
But more to the point, if someone else was doing that, they might be like, oh, playing guitar means playing scales all the time and means like playing things perfectly and doing it the way that it's written.
Right.
Is it?
Yeah, no, I completely see what you're saying, and I completely agree. I think that it was kind of harmful, maybe just because I was very perfectionist and like maybe I interpreted it incorrectly. Very possible. But I mean, it's pushed that you want to be the first, the best, the top player in every orchestra. You have to make the top band. You have to like compete in the state and get first place. You know, like that's really valuable. That's very valued in the school system. And I see the merit to it, but I also think it can be really harmful, and it does not breed creativity. It breeds like roboticism, rigidity, exactly. But I do think being a young adult, being out of that system, it has provided me value. I think that it's given me a foundational understanding of music in a lot of ways.
I've noticed your ear is like one of the most developed that I've ever been around.
Wow, what an honor.
So I'm not trying to say that there's no, definitely wouldn't say that there's no merit. But the risk of burnout is there present, right? Do you know other people that have been like that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I completely burnt myself out because I was competing since I was probably 10 years old, maybe. And it was very intense. Like my private lessons teacher would literally kick people out of her studio if they weren't good enough.
Wow.
And if they wouldn't like make the state band.
Wow.
Very intense, very intense. And granted, I received a lot of, like, you will receive a lot of praise for subscribing to that system and doing well in that system. Yeah, I don't know. What was your question?
Well, I was asking, do you know other people that are also burnt out?
Oh, yeah, totally. I definitely know other people who were burnt out. I think it's, yeah, people, high achievers, like, who are young and very impressionable and like want to please others, which is understandable when you're 10, 12,
Yeah, for sure.
15
Mom and
years
dad want
old.
me to do this. My teacher wants me to do
Yeah,
this.
exactly. So I wanted to go to music school my whole life. And then by the time I was 17, I was like, I can't do this
I'm done with
anymore.
this.
This is like
I'm glad that
grueling.
your burnout, that was the only what do you say, catastrophe of that burnout, because it seems like your
Right.
passion for music still is
Yes.
intrinsic, it's deep, you're still playing a ton.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. And I'm so grateful. Like I never could have seen music taking the role that it has in my life right now. I never would have foreseen that because I always played classical music. But luckily, I think having that strong foundation and then burning myself out kind of gave me a blank slate. And then I started doing jazz in college, and that's still a little more structured than what I do now. I don't really play like subscribed songs and chords. I kind of play whatever the hell I want, which is really fun. But that kind of led me into just, oh wow, I just like playing music for fun and I just want to see what I can make.
Yeah.
Now that I have this background, that's great, that's helpful. But yeah, it
Yeah.
worked out really well.
So you were speaking to the merits of it, and so your ear is well trained, your understanding of scales.
Yeah, I guess so. I
What
mean,
else do you feel like was major? Do you feel like it gave you the discipline required to play certain ways?
you know, I think I have a rocky relationship with discipline now in music because I was so hardcore at a young age. Like, I literally would, like, I was a young teenager, 12 years old, and I would probably sleep 4 or 5 hours a night because I had so many things I wanted to accomplish because it's like grind culture.
Yeah.
Very unhealthy.
Well, especially for a young kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And it was totally self-inflicted. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I had teachers who were intense, but I was also very intense. And I just
You were ambitious, or you are ambitious.
yeah. But since I did that, I think I have kind of a rocky relationship with like feeling pressure to practice and do something in a subscribed way. Now I just am like, well, if I feel like doing it, I'm going to do it, which can be good and bad. But I mean, yeah, I mean, knowing scales, like I don't necessarily think about scales when I'm playing them. But I think it trained my ear to hear scales that can be used and shouldn't be used in a certain context and shouldn't use loosely. But I don't know. I think definitely the ear training piece and maybe the technique piece,
Sure.
because I practiced rigid like technique all through my childhood. And now I don't think about technique, but that's a result of probably those years where I did.
So just for context, because you've only really mentioned that you play oboe in this whole time. We haven't
Oh, yeah.
actually mentioned anything else. So you mentioned that you have a fretless bass.
Yeah.
So, and part of the context for that owning an electric fretless bass is that you play double bass.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Just so that people are aware. Because do you feel like that
Yeah.
technique really translated well to playing electric?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I played upright bass for maybe 10 years before I ever really touched an electric bass. And playing electric bass, I mean, it has the same layout in terms of notes. And you can use a similar technique, sort of. So it definitely lent itself to electric bass. There was like somewhat of a transition because electric bass is like kind of used for different styles, and then also it's like you can play more technically, which I find very fun. Yeah, definitely lent itself though to playing electric bass, but they're like, I don't know, they have different purposes, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Different instruments for different things.
Yeah, different contexts. But
Yeah, for sure. So I just thought that was important because you're talking about technique, and people are probably wondering, how does oboe translate to
right.
bass? Like,
Yeah,
no,
you're
it's
you're
double-
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
how are you doing? Do you want another drink? Are you
Ooh, I would go for some tea.
have some chamomile?
Yeah. Did you put your like honey in there? Oh, yes. What a pleasure.
Just so that people know, Dad has a bunch of bees, and so I've just put some honey in here to brew with the chamomile.
Gorgeous. My kangaroo cup. Thank you. Yes.
All right, enjoy. I hope that's okay.
Oh, delicious. Love it.
We'll polish yourself. I think
Amazing.
I need a bit of that I need a hit right now.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Good for
Um,
talking so much.
yes, exactly. So coming from that competitive environment to where you are now,
Hmm.
you're saying now you should play whatever you want.
Yeah.
What does whatever you want mean?
Um. Well, I think whereas I used to play classical music, which is just like you said, rigid, and it's prescribed. This is exactly the note you're gonna play, how you're gonna play it, how loud you're gonna play it, the articulation you're gonna play, the tone you're gonna use. That is all prescribed. Everything about it is you're supposed to play it to a T.
It's a script.
It's a script, exactly. And there's not room for flexibility, really. I think in between would be jazz, where it's prescribed chords, maybe prescribed dynamics, and I don't know, maybe there's a melody already written and you're playing off of the page. Maybe there's also some improv, like on upright bass you play a walking bass line over chord changes. But now what I play mostly is I play electric bass at jam sessions, which are the ones that I attend. I mean, there's a lot of different kinds, but the ones that I like playing are no covers, no requests. And those are pretty much the rules for all the jam sessions I play at. And so everything is completely improvised. You can play anything you want. I mean, you're encouraged to listen to other musicians, but it's all whatever you're feeling and like how that relates to what other people are feeling and their background and knowledge. So that's very free form jamming and just applying my musical knowledge without the script, which I love doing. And then the other part of it would be playing with my band. And we group write, and so it's kind of whatever we want to play. We all kind of have different interests, but an intersection because we all met in a jazz band. So we all have kind of a common knowledge of music, but different interests in music. So it's kind of whatever we want to play, however we want to write a song. We just like talk about it and see how it goes. I don't know. So it's like just not scripted.
What's the like anatomy of a typical solar plexus super punch song? Is there something
Anatomy.
that ties it all together? Something that you're like, these are themes that we like playing with, or you kind of like whatever goes, and the end result just happens to be solar plexus super punch?
I think more the second one. It's kind of whatever goes, honestly, but oftentimes, well, there's kind of two different ways that we might start writing a song. The first one would be someone has an idea that they bring to the group, like, oh, I really like these chords together. It could be literally two chords. It could be just like two random chords. I'm like, oh, these sound cool together. Let's see. You want to try and like write something with this? I don't know. And we all write our own parts. And it's kind of like a group writing session, but someone's like brought an initial idea that they had. Then the other one would be, I would say like 25 to 50% of our rehearsals are just jamming.
Yeah.
Like we will write and stuff and rehearse songs for gigs and whatnot, but a lot of it's just jamming, and then maybe something happens during the jam and we're like,
That
we
was the
should
moment.
we should keep that.
Do you record your jams
Yes,
on phones or with
I
phones?
I literally just do a voice memo on my phone.
Because I find that there's so many times where you're like, that was brilliant, and I have.
I don't remember what it was. Yeah, no
I don't
idea
know what it was.
Exactly.
I don't know how I did it.
Exactly.
Even if you could maybe sort of think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the cool part of it, though. It's like it's something that like happened in that one moment that only existed in that one moment. But yeah, I record them so I can remember anything that we were like, oh, that could be like worth
Working on.
Yeah, working on.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it sounds so. The main thing as I'm getting is maybe there's an idea, not always.
Yeah.
And it's where basically having a conversation, i.e., jamming,
Yes.
and whatever
yes.
sounds cool is like, cool. That's going to be the idea.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Is it like everyone kind of gets a sense of that?
Yeah, I would say so. I think.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was just gonna say, like, is there a moment where you're like, as you're playing, you're like, people look at each other like, oh, that was the thing.
Yeah, I think like we'll be in a jam and it might last 10 to 20 minutes maybe. I don't know. And maybe we think back like after the jam, we're like, oh wow, that, or it could be like, oh, that was fun, that was silly, we're not really going to keep anything from that, because sometimes it's just nonsense, which is fine.
Because it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun, it's
And
fun.
you're learning how to keep talking to each other.
Exactly. And then sometimes it's like, oh, there was a moment there where there was a really cool groove happening and we want to go back to that. Like, did anyone record that? And so I just naturally like turn on a voice memo every time we play now, because that often will happen. It's like, oh man, I hope we should remember that one piece that we
That all
liked
came
about it.
together. Okay.
Yeah. But we all like, there might be like one bass line or one like chord progression or something that we were like, oh, we should keep that. And then we might have a jam over that specifically, and everyone's just kind of experimenting on their instrument and writing their own part, because it's all group writing. Like, we're all writing our individual parts.
So it sounds like to me that you guys are doing something which is like basically refined improvisation. So you improv,
Yes,
you find the magic, and then you
Yes.
refine what makes it magical.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's
And
exactly it.
That's really special.
I agree. Yeah.
Really special. It's
Yeah.
something that I don't necessarily do with my band. I do it like myself. Sometimes I'll pick up my guitar and I'll just
Right.
play along, like
Right.
not even writing, just playing, just because I just need to get something out of me. And then I'll think,
Right.
and then I'll start playing something, and then I start repeating and being like, oh, that's the idea.
Right.
Oh, I
Right.
wasn't planning on writing anything.
Right.
But that's
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
And then I might voice memo it, or more typically, especially if I have the ability to, I'll open up Ableton. These days, I'll maybe try and record it, but typically my process has been, I'm just going to write this out in MIDI real quick.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great way to do it.
And then just so I have the idea like kind of more in stone. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
And then again, it's kind of like the refined improvisation of just like, okay, what about this is really the thing that's working here?
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's not all of my writing.
Right.
Sometimes it is kind of like I'll just be messing around with 2 chords or 4 chords,
Mm-hmm,
or specifically with an idea like, oh man, I always write chords like this. Wonder if I did something different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think all songwriting is like improv in a sense. So,
It is, yeah.
well, it all came from improv, unless you're copying something else, which, I mean, there's merit in playing what other people have
Oh, for
played,
sure,
for sure,
absolutely.
but I'm not trying to diss that, but yeah, most original songwriting is improv.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree. The only thing I guess I would not necessarily even disagree is more just like I've told you, like I'm a big John Frusciante fan, and I think other people might agree. And sometimes things happen with me that I'm like, a melody or a harmony pops into my head somehow, and it feels like a gift somehow. Like it's not almost, it's not like I wrote, it's melody in my head. Like, how could I not have written that? But sometimes it
Just
feels,
popped in there.
sometimes it just feels like someone just went,
Exactly.
and you're just like, what?
Yeah. I mean, I still think that's improv, though.
Yeah. So
I mean, still just an idea that kind of came about from your head.
exactly. Yeah.
And now
I think that's pretty much on the money. I think the only distinction would be basically like, I'm not actively playing, but it is a musical idea that came. And I think
Right.
one thing that I am like, say, less proud of myself with is I think my mind's ear is well trained. My ear isn't that well trained. Like it's getting better, but like I'm super like it was so cool just play stuff, and you're just like, oh, that's like a lockering thing, and I'm just like, yeah, I guess. And you're like, well, you're doing this. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And then sometimes I'm that guy. I'm like, oh, I really clearly hear that thing, but it was just so consistent with you
Well,
when we were
thank
jamming.
you.
And so, yeah, but I feel like one of the things I'm like really happy with is now when I go to write things and I have a melody in my head, it seems like the idea like 5 years ago, I was like, oh, what was what note and what was the relationship between things? And I guess like my sense of like relative, you know, how people have like perfect pitch.
Right.
I feel like my sense of relative pitch is getting better.
Yeah, totally.
Which I'm kind of like, I'm like really happy with, because
Yeah.
perfect pitch in a sense is just cheating. Like,
Yeah.
like okay, sure, you just know all the notes.
Yeah,
you can just hear them. You can
I
just sing them.
know,
Like,
I know.
all right, dude. I worked for my relative pitch.
Right. I feel you. No, I mean, yeah, relative pitch is also something I'm like trying to develop a lot more because I guess I had I mean, I've always had relative pitch, but I didn't like have the words for it and the labels for it. Like I could hear it,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to translate it to my playing.
Yeah.
And
See, I think I could hear something and then play that more easily than I could say what it is still.
yeah, well, that's more valuable than being able to say what it is, I think.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah. And in other
Yeah.
ways, it's like, I don't know, when I was doing my audition for music school, it was like,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
this? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I can play it for you, but I don't.
Right, right. Being able to communicate it with other musicians, like there's definitely merit to that, but I don't think it's necessary.
No, not at all. No, and even communicating with other musicians, I mean, you might have experienced this, having gone from classical to jazz to doing what you're doing
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
We all speak kind of different languages.
Absolutely.
Not only in the sense that
Absolutely.
music is a language, but also the way that we verbalize
Yeah.
the thing that we're playing
Yes.
is different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even, I mean, my band has been playing together for maybe 2.5 years, but we still like speak totally different languages. It's interesting because we all like have such different backgrounds in how we perceive things and also just the nature of playing different instruments. You perceive different aspects of music from the lens of that instrument. So yeah, I think of things as a bass line. Or like I did drumline in high school, so I tend to think things rhythmically. And I might like express the rhythm by like using drumline lingo, and most people are like, "What the hell does that mean?"
Because drumline is kind of its own beast. Really.
It is. It's such a silly art.
Yeah, it's very impressive. But
It was
it's
so fun. So
Yeah, I
fun.
can imagine it would have been fun.
Yeah.
And great for you. I mean, especially as a bass player.
Oh my God, yeah. I never realized, like, I always thought, oh my God, I'm such a mess. I'm like all over the place with music. I just need to focus on one thing and actually be good at one thing. But now I kind of am enjoying the like diverse perspective of like, oh, I played classical bass and I played drum on drumline. So they kind of fit together in a way I never knew they could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. It's jamming with you the other week. It was really evident to me how melodic your playing was, but the rhythm was really like not metronomic, as if it didn't have feel, but more just like you were just so clean with all the
thank
lines
you.
that you were doing. So that was
Thanks.
really fun. I've never
thanks.
jammed that much, let alone with someone that I've interviewed. So it's really interesting
Uh-huh.
to have like a musical like we've already had a musical dialogue
Right,
before
right.
having this
Yeah.
more like verbal dialogue,
Right.
which sounds
right.
like a weird thing to say, verbal dialogue, but
Yeah,
you kinda get what I'm
exactly. I
saying,
know what
yeah.
you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
So I am really interested again in learning about the Atlanta scene, and so I guess what I want to ask about is, you're in this band,
Mm-hmm.
you guys make really great music, you've got a
Thank
release.
you. Uh-huh.
I know that you've got more on the way.
Uh-huh.
You're going back into the studio.
Yes. Yes, we are.
When's that happening?
That's a good question.
We don't know yet.
We don't really know yet.
I've put you on the firing squad right now. So
No,
it's
no.
too much.
No. It's totally fine. So we've got a handful of tunes that are pretty near ready to be recorded.
Okay.
And a couple in the works. I think our goal, well, I've been in Australia for the past almost 4 weeks, so we haven't been able to record anything, of course, but I think our goal is to kind of wrap up those songs that are like near completion and record them sometime in May. And since we're working on an album, we're probably gonna keep those in the backlog and not release them quite yet. And then we've got a couple of other tunes on the horizon, and then I'm sure there's some more to be written that have not even been conceived yet.
Yes.
But yeah, hopefully by like the end of the year, we'd love to release a whole project, start to finish. Yeah.
Okay. So the nature of my questions has two sort of distinct parts to it. Okay. Or there's two questions, I should say. So the first one is to continue asking you about the songwriting thing. And the second part, I want to ask you about what it means and how to go about being a musician in a band in Atlanta.
Ooh, yeah.
So and they're kind of related. So the first question is, obviously you're doing this jamming. Someone might bring an idea in. You refine this improvisation. When do you start playing songs live? When does a new idea like that? And does playing songs live influence the songwriting that you guys do?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So I think that once there's an idea that we are kind of hooked on and we're like, yep, that's going to be in a song, we will it might take us like 2 to 3 rehearsals. Maybe we spend like 75% of rehearsal on that song. And they're like maybe 2-hour rehearsals. We'll kind of flush out the details and the transitions, and normally an idea is just like one small section of the song, and then we have to make other parts of the song that complement that section. So that's like a whole new, like, oh my God, we have to, now it's kind of, it becomes a little bit less improvisational.
It becomes like a puzzle.
It is like a puzzle. Yeah, exactly. And we want them to fit together, and we want to have contrast. And we want it to have a good feel and like kind of nail out each instrument. And we all write our own parts, but we give each other feedback on our parts. I think we're pretty honest about it, which I think it's a good relationship to be able to be honest about it. But yeah, once we've kind of got a structure from start to finish, and we feel that we can play through it smoothly without it like falling apart or then it's kind of ready to be performed.
Okay.
And then I guess I don't know if playing it live changes the songwriting. I guess like playing live gives you kind of a different energy. A lot of our songs, there's a structure, and at least for me, I'm improvising the whole time. But through the structure of the song that we've written, and maybe there's like somewhat of an outline of a bass line, but everything in between is improvised. Like I don't write every note of a song almost ever. I never play the same song the same way ever.
Do you know Stuart Copeland? From the drummer from The Police?
Oh, yes.
He says
yes.
the exact same thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's like, I just don't I don't really play the same song twice ever.
Yeah. There's not, like, I don't write out every note. That's not at all the approach I take. I feel like that would be kind of labor intensive, and like take away from like creating a more natural feel. So sometimes if we play a song live, there's a different energy when I'm being perceived, or maybe people are like into it and like communicating with me, or maybe people are not interested, and that's going to change the way that I play, and just the energy that I'm feeling. And then sometimes maybe I'll play something well or not well, or something that I like that I had not thought of before that just came up during the performance. That could change the song, but not necessarily like, I don't know if we like change the structure of the song because of the way we performed it, but like my individual improv style might be influenced by the energy of like the way I'm interacting with people who are watching us play.
Okay, so that sort of leads me on to two things. You're not playing the same song in the same way,
right?
But are there the things that you do maybe live and the people like you can tell people like that specific thing that I've done, or there's certain ideas that you've done and you're like, this idea, this motif belongs to this song, or you're kind of like, even then it doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
I don't know if I understood the second question.
So like a musical motif, like a musical idea,
right?
That you're like, so for example, like when I write a bass line for a song, so I showed you one of them that was like do 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 da do da. Remember we sort of jammed that a bit.
Yep.
That belongs to that song in my mind.
Yeah.
Whether or not that happens like every time or whatever, that doesn't really matter. But like the fact that it sort of works specifically in the context of that song,
right?
Is the musical motif that sort of comes back over and over again between shows.
Okay.
Is that sort of something that you relate to in some way, or you kind of literally doesn't matter what we're playing? It could be this specific song. I'm never going to play it. Even ideas that I think work well with this song doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do different ideas.
Right. I think some things definitely stick in a song, and like I'll find a feel that works really well with the song, and maybe that oftentimes has some of the same notes, and maybe the same structure of notes, and so it could be maybe considered a motif?
So it could be like either a feel or maybe a rhythmic idea or a
Yes.
specific interval that you're
Yes.
like, I'm not writing the specific things. Like I'm not writing C to G, but the idea of a fifth working in certain ways
Yes.
is the thing that comes back over and over again.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
How do you know what to? This is coming from basic curiosity because I work so much in more of a recorded way rather than a jam way. So I'm coming from that lens.
Right.
Sorry, I hope I'm loud
Right.
enough.
I get it.
How do you know what to commit to recording when it comes time for the band to be like, cool, we're gonna record now? Are you just like, cool, whatever I'm improvising with all these motifs that I have in the back of my mind, whatever I improv on the day or on that take is what's going to commit to the thing? Or are you like, well, there's certain ideas actually I kind of really want to play, and when we're recording, I will play them over and over again.
I think that both are true. Both can be true. I think by the time we're ready to record something, we've probably played it a lot of times. We've performed it a lot of times, and certain things have worked. And I've also I have more of a sense of what notes feel good on that song. So naturally I'll play in the same realm of maybe something I've played before. So it's not like I have this exact idea. Maybe there's one part of a song where I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to play that note in specific, because that's what kind of is the foundation of a chord or something. And it makes sense to keep it there. Or rhythmically, I want this exact relationship between the rhythm I'm playing and the drummer's playing. So I'm going to always play that rhythm. So in that sense, maybe that's less improvised. But in the recording session, I guess I have those, I've played the song so many times, the neural pathways have been formed in what area of the neck I'm going to play, what rhythm, what kind of feel I'm going to play, and what maybe shapes I'm kind of tapped into.
I think that sounds brilliant. It kind of sounds freeing in a lot of ways. It's like you have anchor points, but between the anchor points there's play.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so then this sort of now leads me on to the second overarching question that I had for you with regards to your band. Being an artist here, again, not having had necessarily a ton of success in any sort of massive way, I'm quite fortunate that we've done a bunch of gigs, but it feels like here, you put out a single or a record, and then you ask a venue, hey, we'd like to put on a show.
Yeah.
Then you ask a couple of bands to come down to support you, ticket it maybe,
right,
and then get a bunch of people down and then do a show. And then hopefully you get the call up from bands to be like, hey, we need you to support us or whatever.
Right.
You as a person outside of the band like to do a lot of jams.
Yes.
Does the band do jam sessions, or what gigs does the band do?
So our drummer, I actually met at a jam session, and he's really into the jamming scene. So he will jam as an individual. I will jam as an individual. Occasionally we'll be on the same jam, kind of unrelated to the band. The other two are, that's less of their thing. So they're not so much jammers per se. I think that most of the jamming that we do as a band is in our rehearsal space. We don't necessarily go out and jam live. And then what was your other question? How do we
what is it?
book gigs?
Yeah, so what gigs do you do? Are you sort of going, okay, we're going to headline a bunch of shows, we're going to be the main thing that people are coming to see? Are you looking for people to support? Are you looking to support other people? Sorry. Are you okay, for us to do a headline show, we need to do a single release? Do you know what I mean? What's the philosophy or the strategy or the approach to doing gigs?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think our band might be kind of unusual in this, but I don't think we have ever booked our own gig. We have never reached out to a venue and said, can we play here? Every gig we have ever played, I'm pretty sure ever in it's 2.5 years. It's not that long, but has been someone just reached out on Instagram, or maybe I'm out playing at a jam session and someone asks if I want to sit in on something, or if my band wants to play. And we'll often be a supporting band. Sometimes they'll ask us to headline a show somewhere, or we play a lot of like local small music festivals. And someone just reaches out. Honestly, it's like it's a very community oriented music scene in Atlanta. There's like a lot of it's a word of mouth community oriented kind of ordeal, and there's a lot of people who have great initiative to set up shows, and I think we've just kind of benefited from that. And that they oftentimes a venue wants 3 bands to play, and so they say, hey, are you interested in hopping on this bill? And that's kind of how we get all of our gigs.
Well, that's really, I mean, I think that speaks to how great what you like the music there
Well,
is.
thank you.
And clearly, like getting it from live shows as well is probably a testament. I haven't seen you guys play, but I can imagine that it is really fun to be around.
Oh, thanks.
So that's obviously a testament to that. I guess, is it the kind of thing you sort of mentioned to me privately that, you know, you're all got your work, so you guys are sort of fine
Right.
individually. You're not necessarily playing music to earn money.
Right.
Is that the kind of thing, if you could hypothesize for me, if you were just to do your band
Right.
financially, would that be like a viable option in Atlanta? Do people get paid all right?
That's an interesting question. If I were to make it my full-time gig, I think I could make it work. I think it's a gig economy, and I could also, I mean, I'm often asked to play like in a session or something, and I normally don't, because that's not normally something I like. That's not like my main interest in music. I kind of like to just keep my focus on exactly what I want to be working on. But I think it's doable. It's doable. You can definitely make a modest living as a musician. I mean, there's bands who have made great livings, you know, and tour. I know people on tour around Europe right now who are from Atlanta and, you know, make good money. But I think for my band, that's like a little tricky because we all have day jobs, and like we all met in engineering school. And like one of my bandmates is like doing his PhD in engineering right now, so it's not like we're gonna pull him on the road for a year.
Yeah, for
It'd be
sure.
kind of tough to do something like that for us.
Well, so I, from what I've heard speaking to other people, unless you're doing basically a guaranteed knockout tour around the
Yes.
States as an
Yes.
Australian,
Yeah.
you're not really expecting to make much money on tour. at
Right.
all. You'd be really happy to come back breaking even.
Yes. That's true. That's true.
And so is that similar to what you would expect? Like your friends traveling in Europe, you said that they're going to earn pretty good money doing that.
I think they'll probably make good money. I mean, I don't think they're making.
Bank.
Yeah, they're not getting rich and retiring at 30 or something, but I think they're making like enough money to live and probably profit.
So why I'm sort of bringing this up is because there's like 2 reasons. Firstly, the Victorian government, so the state that we're in right now, the Victorian government wants to introduce a bill that I don't think private venues are expected to abide by this, but any council gig, anything that's publicly funded, so some festival gigs and things like that,
Oh.
they want to guarantee a minimum wage for musos.
Oh.
So they want to guarantee
wow.
$250 per band member for a show,
Oh, wow.
which would be good.
Excellent.
We'll see. Obviously, I want it to be feasible. We'll see how
Right.
feasible it is.
Right. Right.
Because I would hope that the reason why we're being underpaid is because there's not much money going around in the first place. Otherwise, we're just being exploited, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That would be horrible.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
hopefully, publicly funded festivals and council gigs and all that have the money to make this work. And the other reason is like, you know, we might expect to make okay money at some shows, and other shows it's just like, I'm like, well, we all 4 of us got paid $80 for this. So
Yep.
what do you
Yeah.
guys want? Like, do you guys want $20?
Yeah.
Like, I
Exactly.
can pay you $20. It's no drama. It just feels like an insult for me to pay you that much money.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And I was wondering, is that like
Exactly.
a similar experience?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that the exploitation is very real in America. There, as far as I know, there is no minimum wage to be paid for musicians, because it's, I guess it's more of like a contract. I don't even know how that works
That's why
actually,
I'm
but
saying like publicly funded things will have to abide by this, whereas private venues, I don't think will. I need to look into it more,
okay,
because
right,
they can't get in the way of two people making a contract.
right,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly. I don't even know of any publicly funded events like that. I mean, I guess we have like the Atlanta Jazz Festival, which, I mean, I'm sure they pay their musicians well, but it's a free festival, so I don't really know what they do for funding, but I can't imagine we would have any kind of publicly funded minimum wage. I don't see that on the horizon for America, honestly. I mean, for our gigs, we kind of, I don't know if this is how it works for you, but we get paid based on ticket sales and it's split evenly between the bands normally.
It's different everywhere.
Different everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fortunately, I get to play in one of the bands based down in Tasmania, and it could be a consequence of the specific story with that band. Like they need to fly me down, which already introduced a lot of costs.
Right.
But they won't do any shows that don't have a guarantee.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's like, this is the amount you're going to get paid,
Right.
which is nice. And also I think there's also another part of that, which I think is, are we confident that this will sell enough tickets?
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? If we did a ticketed thing,
Yeah.
especially when you're looking across the whole state there, so
Yeah.
many of the fans are like around the state rather than one concentrated city. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's a consideration. But I need to speak to the rest of the band members whether or not ticketed gigs is something that they do that often. I know in Melbourne it's like very common. There's sort of there's a couple of ways that people mostly do it. Ticketed shows, free shows with a guarantee / takings from the bar.
Right.
So they might say we'll just give you 10% of whatever the bar owns regardless, or here's a guarantee until a certain amount. Those are the sort of the common ways to get paid.
Interesting.
We're talking about people at our level who are like putting on shows, hoping to bring people in. Once you sort of break through that first thing, first barrier, let's say, you can start being like, we don't play for less than $2,000 because I want to pay everyone in the band $500.
Right. Yeah. I think it's definitely correlated to status and how much you're going to get paid, but I mean that could be a lot of factors. Like I said, we've never booked like our own gigs, so like I've never like had the conversation with a venue on how this payment's going to work, but I think almost every gig we've played has been ticket sales, like some proportion of ticket sales is then split evenly between the bands. Yeah.
Is it been just a consequence of the way that things work, or people aren't really interested in booking gigs, or why do you think you specifically haven't booked your own gigs?
I mean, I think like thankfully, I mean, other people are looking for acts and we just haven't had to.
Yeah. That's really great.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, we started playing house parties, which you don't get paid. So, and I think we just kind of got our name out there in
It's fun to do the house parties, though, right?
Super fun. It's a really, really cool community. So I went to a school called Georgia Tech, and it's in Midtown Atlanta. So there's a lot going on there, a lot of music. And as a school, like there's no music program. I mean, they have bands and stuff, but you can't get a music degree. You can get a music technology degree because it's a STEM school, but kind of silly, but there's no like music major or anything. But there's a lot of musicians for some reason. Maybe it's like the math and music, like brain correlation. I don't really know, but there's a lot of like music going on in the neighborhoods around the school ran by the students, which is really cool. Like we have like a Fright Fest. So our Halloween, October 31st, will that weekend, there will be, I think every year since I've been in school, there's been a festival that'll be like 6 houses maybe, and they each host 4 bands and then a handful of DJs. And so it's like a literal music festival put on by students. Like everything is run by students. Right. And so we'll play at those gigs, and I mean, there would be thousands of people kind of walking around the different houses.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then maybe they sell drinks at the party, and then they try and like give the band some money. But that's like kind of the nature of it, is like, someone, they need a band to play, they hit you up, they tell their friends that they played with this band. I don't know, you just kind of keep in touch, or I don't know. So people just reach out, and it's a really nice, it's a privilege of being in like a tight knit community of musicians like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, things like I'll have to come up to Atlanta
Yeah, you
and see what it's
should.
like.
You definitely should. You should come see the Atlanta Jazz Festival free. This year, Andre 3000 is playing.
He plays oboe, right?
Flute. Yeah, yeah. We had Ron Carter. I don't know if
I
you're.
don't know Ron Carter.
Like has played. He's like one of the most prolific bass players of all time. He plays upright bass. He played on all the like Tribe Called Quest
Yep.
albums. Like he's the bass player for like every cool hip hop album ever.
Sick.
We also had Herbie Hancock play one year.
The goat.
Yeah, we had Samara Joy and Wynn Marsalis play last
Oh, wow.
year. Like and it's free. It's free.
Yeah, it's
So you
sick.
should come to that. And yeah, I'll take you some jam sessions. There's like a bunch of jam sessions every week at cool bars, or people have turned their houses into venues, or like just like cool little niche
That's the vibe.
things. Yeah, lots of music going on.
I think on that note, there's
Yeah.
a couple of other things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
Firstly, is there anything that you want to sort of get across before we? Anything from your time here that you're like, hey, it's something that I just thought I wanted to highlight, or anything you want to say about your band or yourself?
Oh, that's a big question. I mean, I guess like through playing like in my band, through playing in Atlanta and trying to play music in different cities, I've just realized the importance of just experimenting and doing things that are uncomfortable. So like any musician who comes to me like I don't know, asking me about my music or anything, I'm like, honestly, like I attribute it all to jam sessions. And like, I mean, I have a classical background, that helps, but honestly, just like kind of fucking around is like, in my opinion, the best way to learn how to do music. And then also like transposing things. You don't have to write anything down, but just like listening to someone who you admire and then trying to play like them, like it's like a private lesson.
Yeah, it is.
For free. And yeah, that's like the best way I've gotten involved in music, is just like virtue of the community, and also being around people who do different things than you is like so virtuous, inspiring, teaches you a lot.
Herbie Hancock says the exact same thing. He says, listen to the greats.
Listen to the greats. Absolutely. Great advice. Yeah, just listen to as much music as possible, honestly. And be out of your comfort zone. Like that's the only way to like grow beyond what the realm that you already live in.
I think that's something that I need to take a bit more on board. I think I do stuff that I like find experimental, but then when it goes to like, for example, being at a jam session, I just like the idea of it like is really daunting.
It is. It is.
I'm not going to do it, but maybe your encouragement, I'll go.
I suggest it to everyone. I think it's like been a life-changing thing for me, and it's really scary. I think it's scary for everyone, and like oftentimes like not trying to like make anyone have pity for me, because it's totally fine, but like there's no women who play instrumental improvisational music.
Sure.
Because women and this is a whole TED talk, but women are not bred and raised to be the kind of person who improvises. Like we're taught to do things perfectly and present ourselves perfectly, and not to like loudly share our like erratic ideas. And also it can be quite a boys club. So like it is,
Yeah, for sure.
it is very terrifying, especially like I'll go to jam sessions in different cities and stuff, and I'm just like some random girl they don't know. They're not really used to seeing girl musicians. They're like, do you know how to play an instrument? I'm like, please let me play. But yeah, it's scary is my point. But like the only way to not be scared of it is to do it, which is like a hard thing to reckon with. But
It's true. And it's true for a lot of things. It's not
for a
just
lot of
music.
things. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Sometimes it's true because it takes the teeth out of it. you think it's much scarier than you thought it would be.
Yeah.
And other times it kind of is as scary as you thought it would be. Like it is, but you're doing it makes you grow.
Yes, exactly.
It's really unfortunate that's your experience, probably the experience of a lot of women doing jam sessions or just in the music industry in general. I think maybe jazz especially.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think experimental, like improvisational music can be very intimidating for women. Women are just not, most women in my experience are not raised to express themselves with that much confidence outwardly.
In terms of music?
In terms of music and like literally just sharing your ideas creatively as like, I don't know, it's like you're saying something as fact. Like women are kind of raised to say like, oh, if you want, we can do this, or like, oh, kind of tread lightly. That's not the nature of improv.
No. In fact, the nature of improv is like make a statement.
Yeah, make a statement. Say your idea, and it doesn't matter what other people think, or like, I don't know, if you believe in it, it's right. That's not how women think. That's not how they're raised to think. Yeah. And it can be intimidating. Like, I mean, I don't ever see women. I don't think at any jam session I've played here, there's been a woman instrumentalist. There have been women singers and poets, not a single instrumentalist. Not a one.
So we don't have to necessarily get too into this if you don't want, but one thing that I don't know if I should really name any names, but people who know which university I went to, and I have a very at one time it was one of the best jazz schools in the country. We'll see if it still is or not. I don't think so. Anyway,
Cool.
when I knew some musos there, they were women and they were part of the band, like the ensemble program. And in their effort, maybe this sounds good, but I think the effects of it were very intimidating for the women. In their effort to be very gender equal, have gender parity in the bands, they basically said the women weren't allowed to play there wasn't allowed to be more than one woman in the band because they wanted to spread them all out across the bands. Now, what if you're a woman and you want to play with other women?
Yeah, exactly.
What if well, that's like really that was the big one.
Yeah,
Do you know
absolutely.
What I mean? And whether or not like that could be intimidating for women wanting to play with band or not.
Yeah.
The idea of like an all-women band was kind of like not off the, like you could do that privately, but like you weren't
right.
As part of the assessed material, you couldn't do that.
Right.
Now they did other things. I think that was fine.
Right.
Like if you played a piece for your own examinations, you had to include Australian artists and like female artists and stuff as well, which is obviously really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the from the number of women that I spoke to about that specific, they were more like, this feels how do I say it? If you're a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail.
Yeah.
One type of solution.
It's kind of a naive
for every problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, does that make sense? It's like it's not the right solution to that. It's more just don't be discouraging of women playing instruments.
Right.
And because so few of the women that were in the ensemble program at all were like instrumentalists, they weren't playing together. Like we have women bassists, women drummers, women guitar players, and none of them were playing together. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. That is crazy.
So
it's a tough issue.
It is a tough issue, and there's my perspective on it, who cares? But my perspective on it is generally, don't be discouraging. You know, that goes a long way.
Yes.
And part of that is like if you're going to sessions and people are like, well, do you know how to play your instrument?
No, I've heard quite literally that.
That's insane to me.
Yeah, I've heard some really weird things. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And people will sort themselves out the way that they want to sort themselves out. You know what I mean? If you want to do jam sessions, as long as no one's getting in your way, I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know women who have played at jam sessions, and maybe it's their first jam session they've ever played at, and like generally I've had good experiences, and everyone wants to encourage people to learn and be able to express themselves in jam. But I've known multiple women who have been playing at a jam session, someone unplugged them.
I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like beyond the pale.
I know. It's really absurd. Like,
Mm.
yeah, and I'm not trying to like have anyone like pity me or anything. Like, it's totally fine and it's just part of it. But like, I mean, people have said some really questionable things to me. Because oftentimes I'm the only woman, instrumentalist specifically. I would say 90% of the time. Luckily my band is 50-50, and I love that. But I mean, I think my first day playing in like the higher jazz band in my university, like someone turned around and said, oh, you actually played the changes. I was like, what are you talking about? Aren't we in jazz band? Like, what else would I be doing? I don't know. Like, I really don't understand that comment. It was just so silly. And it's like, I don't know. That's just a very regular experience. I feel like, I don't know. I kind of have to just, like, it would really upset me at first because I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I
getting
hate,
bugged out.
yeah, I really don't like that. Obviously, it's like putting women down or just like, oh, I didn't expect you to know how to play
actually
your
know how to play an
instrument. And I'm just like,
Which is
okay.
crazy.
Yeah.
So this is not this is purely an addendum, not to change or supplement your experience.
No. Go for it.
I just like almost like in my mind, having gone to a music school with a ton of jazz musicians, as a man, I was like interacting with some of the jazz music and some of the music technology students, frankly.
Yeah.
I was like, man, your social skills are like non-existent.
Yeah.
Do you know, and I'm
Yes.
not even like, I mean,
Yes.
it shouldn't even be like this. I'm not a woman, so I'm not like copying some of the really intense stuff. But I was like, man, do you understand? It's like basic social etiquette. Like,
Yeah. That's such a good point.
do you understand? Like, it started to tread onto like, we had this term in my band. Oh, he's a jazz musician, derogatory.
Oh.
Like he's the kind of dude that really knows how to play his instrument, but does not know how to communicate himself at all.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, and I very much relate to that. And I think I was also in like the perfect storm, because I went to tech school as well.
Sure.
So already the gender ratio is not too great, and it's also like
software devs and engineers.
It's all computer scientists and engineers, exactly, who might be lacking in
they're like,
socialization skills.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't want to try and make it out to seem like they're necessarily bad people so much.
Yeah.
They're like,
they live in a different world.
It's a blunt instrument. Like their verbal knowledge is a blunt instrument compared to, like, let's say their brain, which understands engineering really well, but that's
right. There are different sides of the brain that they're flexing. For sure.
Exactly. And that's no excuse for impoliteness or unplugging an instrument, which is insane.
Right? And it's multiple people.
That's
multiple
which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's why I highlighted this is not an addendum. This is not like a supplementation of what you're saying. It was like, oh, this is explained because jazz musicians don't know how to use their brain. Like, it's not about that. It's like,
no, I get it.
I just feel like in a slightly lesser tone, like in a toned down side of way, I've like witnessed shit like that. I'm just like,
yeah.
Did you think? Like, do you?
Yeah. Do you think before you speak?
Like, sure, you can play the craziest changes I've ever seen, but like,
yeah.
And like sometimes they'll say things, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like bother washing my hands out of the bathroom.
That's so funny.
I'm like, you just volunteered that information to everyone here. Like, that's normal. Yeah. What's wrong?
Exactly. Yeah, in engineering school, our joke was always that computer science majors don't shower.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of bad. It's kind of rough, and it became a thing for a reason. So.
Well, yeah, it was actually kind of a thing with my music tech degree because that same professor I was telling you about, after like a couple of weeks, brought a spray deodorant to class and was like, if you guys haven't had a shower today or put deodorant on, this is here. And I will tell you to use it.
Good for him.
And we're like, I was there like, I don't want to smell these dudes. Like, the chicks either. I was like, I would actually rather not smell anyone today. It would be a great day in the studio if my nose was spared.
Yeah. Exactly.
Especially because in studios you don't often have like windows to open up.
Yeah, that's so true.
builds up.
That's so true. Yeah.
The only last thing I wanted to bring up, I'm glad
Oh,
that
yeah.
we're like laughing about some of this and
Yeah.
obviously cringing at a lot of it as
Yeah.
well. But one other highlight I would like to think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, about your trip down here has been trying out some Lebanese food.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Wait, is your question like just
Tell me about your experience with Lebanese food
Oh,
and maybe food generally, because you've also had some really
food.
great Asian food that you told me about.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, the Lebanese food was amazing. You've spoiled me. That's for
We
sure.
went to A1 Bakery, obviously, but we also
Uh,
had a bit of food here as well.
yes. A1 Bakery blew me away. Maybe I'll go back today, actually,
It's a good idea.
because it's my last day.
Gotta go. What time's your
I
flight tomorrow?
know.
Too early?
Like 5:30
AM?
a.m.
Oh, okay, well, you're not going tomorrow.
I'm not going tomorrow.
Even a bakery ain't
Unfortunately.
open that
Yeah, I know. It's
early.
rough. It's rough. But yeah, I loved you gave me such a good variety.
Yeah, it was
It
good
was
stuff.
so good. Yeah. And then you've cooked for me here and like given me all these little treats from
A
your
lot of Easter treats,
Easter treats. Oh, yes. I'm going to miss them.
which mostly my mum and I
Yeah.
made together. But then you had a ton of really good Asian food as well.
Yes, I did. Oh my God. It's been amazing. I had amazing Thai food. The Vietnamese food has been like
There's a massive
mind-blowing.
Vietnamese community here.
Yes, yes. So I've eaten a lot of banh mi. It's been wonderful.
Love banh mi.
Incredible. Love it. I had some really good dumplings, like fusion style. Like there was like a Greek Vietnamese dumpling.
Whoa.
It was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. And then what else have I had? Oh, I had amazing Ethiopian food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had some lamb tibs.
When you mentioned
Wow.
that you had that, I was thinking I wanted to tell you about Ethiopian food. So I was
Yes.
really happy that you tried some last year. as well.
Yes, it was so good. I love Ethiopian food.
I think the sheer diversity in like and good quality, like it's not just diverse and it's kind of like whatever. It's diverse and really good quality versions of those
Yeah.
different cuisines.
Yes,
You know?
yes, exactly. Yeah,
I think that's really it's really sick.
yeah.
part
I,
of that being
I think
amazing.
there's so much food that a place isn't going to survive if they're not phenomenal. 'Cause there's so much good food to choose.
that's
Yeah.
kind of what's happened with cafes here.
Mm-hmm.
Is like if you make bad coffee, no one will have your coffee. So that's why
Right, right.
I mean, there's coffee snobs who would totally disagree with me. I'm a bit of a coffee snob, but not like that. They'll be like,
Mhm.
I think personally it's hard to find a bad coffee in Melbourne.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's people who are like, oh, there's totally, oh man, like Market Lane overrated. And I'm like, Market Lane is like one of those like OG, like, this is Melbourne coffee.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And they'll be
okay.
like, oh, it's overrated. I'm
Okay.
like, dude, it's thick. Shut like, fuck up. Market
I'm
Lane
not
sucks.
mainstream enough
You know
for
what I'm
that.
saying?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It's not like we're talking about
Yeah.
Starbucks. We're not talking about
Yeah.
Gloria Jeans. We're talking
Yeah.
about like get around them. Anyway,
Yeah,
they're really good.
yeah. Oh, something else I need to try before I go.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, Indonesian food.
Oh yeah.
had some-
What did you have? Do you remember?
Rendang, like beef rendang.
Yes.
Amazing.
I'm like this is like
My new obsession.
basic as fuck, but I'm a nasi goreng guy. I don't care if it's basic. I
Yeah.
don't care.
No, as you should.
It tastes amazing. It's just like a spicy rice dish.
Yeah.
With their
Ooh.
specific blend of spices that
Mhm,
just makes me very happy.
Yes.
Actually,
yes.
now that I've said it out loud, we should go get some or something.
I am down. Please. Yes.
I think that might be on the card.
100%. 100%.
On that note,
Yeah.
before you came to Australia, I was thinking, oh, it'd be really interesting to talk to her on the podcast. And then we hung out and we talked really well. And I'm like, and then I thought, okay, cool it off. She's having a holiday. She doesn't want to work and like talk and stuff. And then I asked you and you were so down. And I just like, it's been a real honor to meet you at all. And then it's been really great for you to come
Oh, that's
on
so
and
sweet.
have a chat with this. And we mentioned that we jammed. That jam was really fun.
Yeah. So
If we
fun.
get a chance to maybe do it again before we like wrap up
Yeah.
here, like we'll wrap this up, but then you and I can have a
Yeah.
bit of a jam
Yes.
if you like.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know, just it's been just a really overwhelmingly positive experience, and I really hope that it, like you've said, you wanted to come back to Melbourne. I really hope that that does happen.
yes.
I really hope that I can come and see you in Atlanta.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's just been really
It's been
positive.
amazing. Yeah. I'm so glad we got to meet, and we've hung out 3 times in my
Yeah.
2 weeks I've been here. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. I feel like I have a genuine friend here.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's really cool.
Definitely.
I
I
really
feel the same way.
appreciate that. Yeah.
same way.
Really appreciate that.
So on that bombshell,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us. It's been really great to chat
Yes.
to you again. And yeah, this is the Man vs. Synth podcast. And big love. Bye.